Got concerned there for a second. I want to think about our relationships tonight. I know sometimes we can look at relationships on different levels, and obviously we can always take what we do on a more basic level to a much more higher level. For example, relationships we have with our friends, relationships we have with our spouses, and of course, ultimately our relationship we have with God. And so we can learn lessons about relationships and apply those to different parts of our lives. Tonight, the reason why I put this particular sermon together was because of a study that was done just a few years ago where psychologists and psychiatrists and medical doctors interviewed thousands and thousands of people and try to focus on three things that affected their relationships. Three things that obviously negatively affected their relationships. So in the end, we'll look at the positive side of it, but there are three things they found that are common to all relationships and common to relationships that sour over time. So as we think about our relationship with those who are probably not as close as other relationships, and then apply them to relationships that mean more to us, and then ultimately we apply them to our relationship with God, we can see that these three things apply. And so I want us to spend tonight, the time that we have, considering what three things can sour a relationship. I thought about Romans chapter 12 as a reading, and we'll look at that right now. And we'll see aspects of these three things and see if you can figure out which ones they are. He says, love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Seems like a very good mantra, a very good motto, a very good statement about our relationships and how we should live. And I wanted to use some of these because I think they apply to the three things that these psychologists and psychiatrists came up with. So the first one they came up with was the fact that sometimes as individuals we compromise our principles. And so in our interaction with other people, we have the appearance of being different to different people. And that perception by others slowly over time sours the relationship. And this is sometimes a very difficult thing because we don't intend to appear hypocritical. We don't intend to treat people differently. But as we know, most of us in here have raised children, you can't treat every child the same, even though you try to have some sort of equality in the relationship with your children. Whether we like it or not, we have favorites. And maybe it's because they're not like us. And then we have those we struggle with because perhaps they are very much like us. But we try to deal with those relationships as best we can, try to keep them consistent. And here's where the problem is. It's when we are perceived to be inconsistent. And so we compromise the way we interact with others. Now the passage out of James comes to mind about God as the ultimate quality to compare ourselves to. James says in 1:17, every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. This is one attribute about God, is that He is so consistent. God is so consistent that He gave us His word, and for 2,000 years, it hasn't changed. Now man has tried to change the rules, and that's just how we are. We are highly inconsistent. We are easily influenced by the circumstances. We're easily swayed. And we're easily dissuaded from doing the right thing. Sometimes we don't have the strength, the understanding, the comprehension of realizing that we are giving up on some of our principles before it's too late. And others notice that. And that's part of the struggle that we find as Christians. I understand that we can't be perfect, and I understand that we do, to a large degree, we have to treat people differently, just because people are different. But is beholden on us to be able to at least have the perception to others that we do care about them as much as we care about somebody else. And that's where the tricky part comes in. Because this is not so much dependent on how we feel and what we think. Nobody can see that. Nobody can see what you feel and what you think. Nobody can. They can only judge you by your actions on the outside, what you say and what you do. Unfortunately, that's all they go by. Sometimes we get distracted, and we don't mean to do these things. Sometimes we get so tunnel vision, we focus on one particular thing that we want to get done, and we ignore people around us. And it's very difficult for those people, if they don't realize that somebody is perhaps in a crisis, or somebody needs immediate attention, and then we ignore them. I don't know if you've ever sat in an emergency room. Ever sat in an emergency room and looked around at all the people that are over there? It's just madness. They put all those sick people all in one room. And you know what I do when I'm over there? I'm evaluating. That guy, 1 through 10, he's a 2. Get him out of here. That guy over there, what's he doing here? He's a 1. He should be out of here. I don't know, though. Here I am as a doctor. I'm evaluating. So who should be next? You know, me with my severed hand? But we don't know what people are going through. Everyone in that room is probably sizing each other up, wondering who's going to be next. When we think about that in a physical sense, we're like that in a spiritual sense. All of us here today need a doctor, don't we? We don't need a physical doctor today. We need a spiritual doctor. We need Jesus. And the truth is, all of us in here represent Jesus. And so it's highly important for us to be as consistent as we can with our lives, so we can be that Jesus that somebody needs. So think about that one. I know this is kind of tough, that we kind of look at ourselves, because it's hard to imagine what somebody else sees in us. One of the things I like about criticism, even though it's bad criticism, is at least I get a perspective from somebody else's view. We don't think that makes a big difference, but if you've ever looked up to a mountain, you have one feeling, don't you? But if you ever climb the mountain and you look down from the mountain, it's a completely different feeling. Same mountain, same eyes, same person. So we need to realize that others are going to be judging us, and we need to be judging ourselves. We need to be thinking about how others are perceiving us, and that we aren't perceived as inconsistent. The next one they found is that in relationships, people tend to compete with each other. There's competition between them and the other person in the relationship for many things. Attention, time, all the needs that we have. We can't be in competition with those around us. Notice what Paul says in Galatians 5. He says, "Let us not become conceited, provoking and envying each other." That is not a healthy environment. I think it's very difficult to manage highly motivated people. If you look at coaches that coach athletes, they are in a highly competitive environment. And they have to manage all of that competition because everybody in the room is looking at the other person that's in their spot. So how do you keep a team together? How do you keep a team together? They're trying to do the best they can without defeating each other, without overcoming each other. I think as Christians we need to realize that we can't be in competition with each other. I'm sure you have had somebody who was a friend, and that's no longer a friend, and we got the past tense because they competed with you all the time for everything. It's tiresome. It weighs you down. And you may not even be competing. They may be the only one that's competing. And after a while, you notice that it's just one big competition. You know, we use the saying today, keeping up with the Joneses, don't we? Have you ever been in a neighborhood like that? I think it's hilarious. Someone down the street gets a new car. Before long, there's a new car across there, there's a new car over there. And you find out they're looking at each other. And then someone gets a boat, and then somebody else gets a boat, and somebody else gets a boat. There's this competition that's going on all the time. I know many people that have all these toys and never use them. So they've got them for the right reasons. I can get many toys that I don't use just to compete with you. Doesn't make any sense. How do we compete with each other and yet hold each other up? That's important. I don't know if you've ever been perhaps at a lunch meeting and there is a big fight after the meeting as to who's going to pay the check. You ever been at one of those? Who's going to pay the bill? That's a good thing. It's a good thing, but somebody has to give in. Somebody has to concede. Somebody has to be the taker. Somebody has to be the receiver. Somebody has to be blessed. We can't go away all angry at each other because somebody else beat you to the check. I think it's great that somebody wants to pay for the whole meal. That's a wonderful thing. Take your friends out, pay for their meals. It's a wonderful thing. I'm sure we'll come around again. But we can't be so competitive that it becomes something that gets in the way of our relationships. We see that also in our relationship with God, how we compete with God. I think religion today in general, Christian religion, is in competition with God. The Christian religion today fails to yield to His instruction. They have their way of doing things. And they want their way. And you know what? God's not going to compete. God's not going to prevent us from doing what we want. He wants us to do what we need, but He's not going to get in our way from doing what we want. I think it's very difficult for you if you're in a relationship where you're competing to constantly work through that. It's a very difficult environment to be in. Because the perception is that you're losing all the time because the other person is winning. They're trying to win and everything. And it's very difficult to be there. I don't think our relationships are healthy if we compete at that level. And if we think about the ultimate relationship we have with God, if we're going to compete with God, I wonder who's going to win. I think we need to concede sometimes. I think we need to lose sometimes. I think we need to realize that we can't really compete in that sense because ultimately we will lose. God will get His way. God will prevail. The final aspect of our relationships that these men discovered was that people complain too much about their problems. Complain too much about their problems. Look at what Paul says in Philippians chapter 2. He says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others." So Paul tries to give us a balance there. Yeah, there are things that are important to us. There are things that we need to be paying attention to. But we should also be paying attention to others as well. It's not just about me. It's not just about us. It's really also about others. In order for us to be able to get along, we can't be venting all of our life's problems with somebody over and over again because that's just so negative. There has to be some positiveness in the relationship. Could you imagine if we, all of our lives, in our prayers to God, just complain? What does that tell us about our perception or our understanding of what God is doing for us? He's not doing anything good for me. All I'm doing is complaining. I see nothing good. Complaining will definitely destroy our earthly relationships, and it certainly will destroy our heavenly relationship. Complaining puts us in a very negative place, because our emphasis is all on our trouble. Have you ever wondered why you succeed in areas that are very difficult, and some people who struggle with the same thing don't succeed? Have you ever wondered how you perhaps in certain areas overcome problems really quickly and others don't? Have you ever wondered how to some people given situations are a huge problem, and to you, you don't even notice them? Probably because you've been blessed. You have a gift. One area is pain tolerance. I bet everybody in this room fits in a different place on the scale of pain tolerance. Some people, they get a 1 and they think it's a 10. And they go to the doctor and say, well, what level are you at? 1 to 10, really? That's a 10. 10 is going out of your mind. You know the 10. You can still talk, so you know when you're a 10. I think people that struggle with things have different tolerances for that. They have different abilities to either be taken under by something or to be able to handle something. Our lives cannot be that bad. Every problem is not going to take you down. Can't. Impossible. And yet if we talk about those problems as being so debilitating that we cannot continue our life, then we are really in a negative spiral, aren't we? It's only getting worse every day. Because all we speak about is these negative things. So these people that came up with these try to think about things that would help us understand why some of our relationships fail. I want you to think about it through your life. I'm sure you've had some of your relationships fail. Maybe they're friends or co-workers. Maybe it's with a spouse or a child. Maybe it's even from time to time your struggle with God. And if we sit down and really think about who the real problem is, most of the time it's us. Most of the time it's us. We always want to blame somebody else, don't we? Really, effectively, if we're being honest, then no matter what the circumstances in life, I first have to evaluate myself. I first have to see what have I done? Because I don't know what the other person is thinking or feeling, so I really can't go in that area yet. I have to evaluate myself first. And yet, oftentimes when we counsel with people or we speak to people about their problems, it's always about them. How somebody else has hurt them. How somebody else is mean to them. But it's not how they have been perceived by those around them. It's not what they have done. So I want to spin these around. Let's look at the positives of these three. If we are inconsistent, if we compromise our principles, then we need to be consistent. Now that's a very difficult thing to do, to be consistent. It requires a lot of us. If we are going to be trustworthy, if people are going to come to us and they're going to approach us, they're going to need to know certain things about us. We're going to have to be consistent. If I come to you and say, I have this problem, in 1 minute, you get so angry, you want to beat me. And then the other minute, you'll put your arms around me and cry with me. Then the next time I come to you, who am I going to get? Jekyll or Hyde? Who's going to reveal themselves? I think consistency is a very difficult thing today. our world is really against us when it comes to having a consistent life. There's so many things coming at us that consistency is very difficult. Next, if we're competing, we need to stop competing. We need to work with others. We need to work together. Wouldn't it be great if you went to somebody and you had a problem, or you were having a problem and somebody approached you and you knew that person was going to work with you? I'm sure you've gone to people and asked them for help, and you've revealed all this information, and the whole time that you're speaking to that person, they're just resisting you at every step. They may even be telling you the right things, but the way it's perceived is that they're just resisting you at every step. I think that's a very difficult thing. The Bible tells us that we should tell the truth, doesn't it? Speak the truth. You know what's interesting about that? It doesn't stop there. It doesn't say just speak the truth. Anybody can just speak the truth. I can be consistent with the truth. And at the same time, I can hurt everybody around me. It's speaking the truth in love. So how it's done is going to be how people perceive it. I think working together means it's not just about me sharing some sort of secret or some sort of recipe for success, some sort of encouragement, some sort of information. It's not just about that. It's about how it's done. And then finally, if we're going to complain, we're going to need to change that. That's too negative. So we have to stay positive. A lot of times it's very difficult to stay positive because the situation is negative. But we do have sayings like every cloud has a silver lining. We've got to look for those things. We've got to look for the light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope in everything. I think it would be very mean of God to put us in any given situation and not give us a way out. Does that remind you of the passage of Scripture? There is no temptation that will bring us down. There's always a way out. There is no trial, there is no struggle that will bring us down. There's always a way out. Now, hey, if you're negative, you're probably not going to